Today, let us have a discussion on pathology of hypertension. Hypertension. So, before discussing about hypertension, let us have a brief discussion on types of circulations. As we know that in our body we have two types of circulations. One is pulmonary circulation, while the other one is systemic circulation. In our body we have two types of circulations. One is pulmonary circulation while the other one is systemic circulation. Pulmonary circulation is circulation of blood starts from heart, will enter into the lungs where the exchange of gases take place, and again from the heart it reaches, from the lungs it reaches to the heart. It is called pulmonary circulation. Whereas systemic circulation is, it starts from the left ventricle and will goes to all the tissues, systemic tissues, and will again comes through the veins and reach the right atrium. It is called systemic circulation. Now, while discussing about the hypertension, what does exactly hypertension means in these two types of circulation? So, whether if this is pulmonary circulation, so these hypertension do not mean this pulmonary circulation, because there is special category, that is pulmonary hypertension. This is a condition where there is hypertension within the pulmonary circulation. It is called pulmonary hypertension. So, actually this hypertension is meant for only the systemic circulation. It is only meant for the systemic circulation. So this hypertension, normal hypertension, means it is meant for only systemic circulation. It is not meant for pulmonary circulation. If there is special indication like pulmonary hypertension, it is regarding it pulmonary circulation. But if there is only normal hypertension, then it is confined with systemic circulation. So this hypertension is confined with systemic circulation. So this hypertension is also called systemic artery hypertension. Systemic artery hypertension. Systemic arteries hypertension, as it is involving in only the systemic circulation. So, before discussing about the hypertension values, we must know the normal values of blood pressure. So, this hypertension is of consisting of two components. One is BP. Hypertension is BP. Can be given as systolic pressure by diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure by diastolic pressure. Now, this systolic pressure, what is systolic pressure, what is diastolic pressure means? Systolic pressure is a pressure which is exerted during the contraction, whereas diastolic pressure is a pressure which is exerted during the relaxation period. So, this systolic pressure is dependent on cardiac output. It is dependent on cardiac output. Whereas this diastolic pressure is dependent on total peripheral resistance. in short TPR, total peripheral resistance. Here it is cardiac output. So this systolic pressure is dependent on cardiac output. We will study that in detail. This diastolic pressure is dependent on total peripheral resistance. So there are certain values, there are certain cutoffs for the systolic pressure as well as diastolic pressure. So for the normal new moderate studies, the systolic pressure can be given as 140 mmHg. Systolic pressure can be given as 140 millimeters of mercury. This is normal systolic pressure. So what is diastolic pressure? Diastolic pressure can be given as 90 millimeter of mercury. This is a standard value which is given by WHO. This 140 millimeters of mercury is systolic pressure, whereas 90 millimeters of mercury is diastolic pressure. So these 140 mmHg by 90 millimeters of mercury, this is the normal blood pressure value. This is a normal value for blood pressure. This is a normal blood pressure value. So in case if there is more pressure than the 140 than this 90, more than 140 by more than 90 millimeters of mercury is considered as hypertension. Is considered as a hypertension. So this is a normal value, that is 140 is systolic pressure, 90 is diastolic pressure. So if the blood pressure within the circulation, that is systemic circulation, is greater than 140 by 90 is called hypertension. So this is the normal hypertension. Now this is the normal cutoff point. So if there is excessive pressure within the systemic circulation, where is the systemic circulation starts from means, let us consider this is the left ventricle. This is the left ventricle. So from this left ventricle, this is the left atrium, the blood will reach to the aorta. From this aorta, it will reach to the systemic circulation, systemic arteries. Now, if the cardiac output, if there is excessive more than 140 millimeters of mercury, cardiac output should be increased. So in order to increase the cardiac output, end diastolic volume should be increased. End diastolic volume is nothing but the volume of the blood which is present within the ventricle just before the contraction is called end diastolic volume. So in order to increase the cardiac output, here the cardiac output is increased. So it undergoes, this ventricle will undergo hyperplasia or hypertrophy. So whenever person suffering from hypertension because of increasing of systolic pressure, that is more than 140, then the condition within the heart is called, this condition is called left ventricular hypertrophy. It results in a condition called left ventricular hypertrophy. This is left ventricular hypertrophy, which is a condition arised within the left ventricle because of increase of cardiac output. That is, ventricle will get hypertrophic condition. So this is some basics of hypertension. So out of this 100% of hypertensive patients, 80% are 80% patients are asymptomatic. These 80% patients are asymptomatic unless there is end organ damage. End organ damage. Unless there is end organ damage, these 80% people are asymptomatic. So what are the end organ damages means? There are 5 organs which are involved in the damaging of because of result of hypertension. What are the 5 organs? First one is central nervous system. This is the first organ which will get affected because of asymptomatic hypertension. Next one is eyes. That is retina will get affected. Retinal hypertension. Next one is kidneys will get affected. Kidney will get affected. It results in nephropathy. Next one is circulation. Normal blood circulation will get affected. Circulation will get affected. This circulation will get affected. Now next last one is heart will get affected. So these are the 5 organs which will get affected because of hypertension. If there is asymptomatic condition, these organs will get damaged. There are 5 types of organs, that is central nervous system, eyes, kidneys and normal circulation and heart. This is some information about introduction of hypertension. Now let us discuss some stages of hypertension. Stages of hypertension. Generally, there are 3 stages of hypertension. First stage of hypertension is first stage of hypertension is called pre-hypertension. This is first type of hypertension, that is pre-hypertension. So what are the characteristic features of, or what are the normal values for this pre-hypertension means? As you know that there are 2 values, one is systemic value while the other one is diastolic value. This is systolic value and this is diastolic value. This is systolic value and diastolic value. In pre-hypertension, the systolic value will be lying between 120 to 139. 139 millimeters of mercury. 120 to 139 millimeters of mercury, whereas the diastolic blood pressure is 80 to 89 into 89 millimeters of mercury. So this is the first stage of hypertension, that is pre-hypertension, where the systolic blood pressure is 120 between the 120 to 139, whereas diastolic pressure is between 80 to 89, is called pre-hypertension. This is the first stage. Now coming to the second stage. What is the second stage means? Systemic hypertension stage 1. This is next stage, that is systemic hypertension stage 1. Now in the systemic hypertension stage 1, what are the normal values? That are systolic and diastolic. Now what are the values which comes under systolic and diastolic? In systemic hypertension stage 1, the systolic values will lies between 142, it lies from 140 to 159 millimeters of mercury. 140 to 159 millimeters of mercury, whereas diastolic pressure is 90 to 99 millimeters of mercury. 90 to 99 millimeters of mercury. This is 90 to 99 millimeters of mercury. This is second stage, that is systemic hypertension stage 1, whereas in systemic hypertension stage 1, the systolic pressure is 140 to 159 millimeters of mercury, whereas diastolic pressure is 90 to 99 millimeters of mercury. This is the second stage. Now coming to the last stage. Last stage of hypertension, that is systemic hypertension stage 2. This is systemic hypertension stage 2. Now what are the values which comes here? Systolic as well as diastolic. In systolic, this is the last type of hypertension, that is systemic hypertension stage 2. What is a systolic pressure means? In systemic hypertension stage 2, the systolic pressure value is more than 160 millimeters of mercury. More than 160 millimeters of mercury. This is systolic pressure. What will be the diastolic pressure of systemic hypertension stage 2 means? The diastolic pressure of systemic hypertension stage 2 is more than 100 millimeters of mercury. More than 100 millimeters of mercury. This is the stages of hypertension. That once again, there are 3 stages of hypertension. One is pre-hypertension, systemic hypertension stage 1, systemic hypertension stage 2. What are the features of pre-hypertension means? In pre-hypertension, the systolic pressure is 120 to 139 millimeters of mercury, whereas diastolic pressure is 80 to 89 millimeters of mercury. Whereas systemic hypertension stage 1, the systolic pressure is 140 to 150 millimeters of mercury, whereas diastolic pressure is 90 to 99 millimeters of mercury. Whereas third one is systemic hypertension stage 2. Now in systemic hypertension stage 2, there is systolic pressure is more than 160 and diastolic pressure is more than 100. So these are some clinical features of stages of hypertension. 3 stages: pre-hypertension, systemic hypertension stage 1, systemic hypertension stage 2. Now there is one important type of hypertension, that is accelerated hypertension or malignant hypertension. Accelerated or malignant hypertension. Accelerated hypertension or malignant hypertension. What are the clinical features of this accelerated or malignant hypertension? Means in malignant hypertension, the diastolic pressure will be more than 120. Diastolic pressure is more than 120 millimeters of mercury. More than 120 millimeters of mercury is the diastolic pressure within the malignant hypertension. So, in this condition, the end organ damage will be very soon. The organs will get damaged. So, we can say that this malignant hypertension is asymptomatic condition. So, here the behavior of the cells in hypertension will be malignant in condition. So, this is the stages and one special type, that is malignant hypertension. Now, let us discuss about the types of hypertensions. Types of hypertensions. Now, clinically, importantly, by standard classification, there are two types of hypertensions are present. The first type of hypertension is called essential hypertension. Essential hypertension. This is the first type of hypertension. So, this essential hypertension is also called primary hypertension. Essential hypertension is also called primary hypertension. This is the first type of hypertension. So, in this first type of hypertension, there is no clear condition, clear well-defined condition for the resulting of hypertension. That means there are more than one condition for the occurrence of hypertension. That is, there is no well-defined condition. No well-defined condition for occurring. In type 1, that is primary hypertension, there is no well-defined condition for occurring. This is the first, let us consider this is the first type of hypertension. Next type of hypertension is secondary hypertension. This is secondary hypertension. Now, in this secondary hypertension, there is well-known condition for the occurring of hypertension. Or well-defined condition. Because of presence of any tumor-like structures or any obstructions within the kidney or abnormalities within the sodium concentrations, like etc. Now, or because of any entry of bacteria or virus presenting hypertension is called secondary hypertension. So these primary hypertension, one point to remember in primary hypertension is this primary hypertension is not curable. This is not curable, but whereas in secondary condition it is curable if early detected. Curable if detected early. If it is detected early, then it can be curable. So these are the two types of hypertension. One is primary hypertension, second one is secondary hypertension. In primary hypertension, there is no well-defined condition for occurring of hypertension, but in secondary condition there is well-defined condition for the occurring of hypertension. Primary hypertension is not curable, whereas the secondary hypertension is curable. Now there is another type of hypertension, that is white coat hypertension. In white coat hypertension, whenever a person visits the doctor room, by seeing a white coat, the blood pressure value will be increased within the seconds, is called white coat hypertension. So these are the two important, and that is not important condition, but these are the two important: primary hypertension whereas secondary hypertension. So this is the types of hypertension. As we know that, let us have some proof. As we know that the blood pressure is combination of systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. Systolic into diastolic. Now, sorry. These blood pressure can be given as, it is a product of cardiac output into total peripheral resistance. Cardiac output and total peripheral resistance. Now, this cardiac output is associated with systolic pressure, whereas this total peripheral resistance is associated with diastolic pressure. Now let us have a discussion how this cardiac output is related with systolic pressure. Let us have one diagram. This is left ventricle. From this left ventricle, this is left aorta. Now, if the cardiac output is increased, first the normal value is 120 mmHg. If the cardiac output is increased, then the amount of the blood which is moving into this direction is moving with a speed of pressure of 120 millimeters of mercury. Now, if the pressure is increased, if the pressure is increased for more than 120, that is 140 millimeters of mercury, then if the pressure within the ventricle is increased, then the volume of the blood which is entering out of the ventricle into the aorta will get increased. So if the pressure is increased, the pressure of the blood which is coming into this direction in this way, it will also get increased. It will release from 120 to 140. So by this increasing of 120 to 140, then these are the arterioles. These arterioles, because of presence of these arterioles, there will be contraction within this aorta. That means this contraction is called as systolic, because because of increase of cardiac output, the amount of the blood which is entering out, it's releasing out from this ventricle into the aorta will get increased. So because of increase of blood flow, there will be contraction of these arterioles. Because of contraction of these arterioles, the pressure within this aorta will get increased. So if there is ultimate increase within the aorta with consecutive increase of pressure within the ventricle. So by this we can say that cardiac output is related with stroke volume. So there is contraction. Now we have proved this. Next one is total peripheral resistance. It is how it is associated with diastolic pressure. Now in diastole there is relaxation. There is relaxation of left ventricle or relaxation of ventricle. So the pressure within the ventricle, that is from 140 to 120, from 120 to 100, as the pressure within the ventricle will get decreased, there are walls, these are aortic walls. Because of decrease of this pressure within the ventricles, there is aortic walls will get closed. Now because of closure of this aortic walls, again there will be stimulation of these arterioles. Because of these arterioles, because of increasing of relaxation, the volume of the blood which is entering into these lungs will get into this aorta will get decreased. So there is a chance of jumping of blood from this aorta into the left ventricle. But these aortic walls are closed. So because of aortic walls, there is resistance closing of because of the closing of these aortic walls, there is resistance developed within this aorta because of these arterioles. So because of this resistance which is developed, then the pressure will get dropped. That is from 120 millimeters of mercury, it will get dropped to 100. Again get dropped to 90. In this way there will be dramatical decreasing of millimeters of pressure. So in this way, if there is decrease in the pressure within the ventricle, then there is closing of aortic walls. As there is closing of aortic walls, resistance will get developed. Because of resistance, there will be decreasing of in the pressure. So in this way, we can say that cardiac output is associated with diastolic condition and total peripheral resistance is associated with cardiac output is associated with systolic conditions, whereas total peripheral resistance is associated with diastolic condition. So this is some information about relation, how this cardiac output is associated with systolic pressure, how this total peripheral resistance is associated with diastolic pressure. So let us have one concept here, one additional concept. which will be helpful for a bright student. Now let us have a graph. This is diastolic condition, this is systolic condition. Diastolic as well as systolic condition. Now let us consider one drug, that is drug A. Let us consider one drug A is given. Now the function of this drug A is, it will increase the graph like this. It increases the graph like this. But the diastolic value will be as usual. Diastolic value is as usual. So what does this drug tells to us means, these drugs helps in increasing the systolic pressure, but there is no effect on diastolic pressure. So if the systolic pressure is increased, then how the systolic pressure is increased means, by it will increase the cardiac output. There are certain drugs which will increases the only cardiac output, they do not increases the total peripheral resistance. By this it explains that this only systolic pressure will get increased. Now let us consider one more drug. Let us consider, this is drug B. Now what is the function of this drug B? Drug B is doing like this. That means there is decrease in the systolic pressure. If there is decrease in the systolic pressure, what is this drug is doing? There is no effect on diastolic pressure. That means the only systolic pressure is decreasing, that means the cardiac output will get decreased. So if the cardiac output will get decreased, the systolic pressure will get decreased. So here the second drug is doing the function of decreasing the systolic pressure. So this is decreasing the systolic pressure. Now let us consider another drug. Let us consider one more drug, that is drug C. What is the function of this drug C means? It is doing like this. There is no change in the systemic circulation, but there is increase in the diastolic condition. What this drug is doing means, it increases the total peripheral resistance. By increasing the total peripheral resistance, diastolic volume, diastolic pressure will get increased. This is the function of drug C. So now let us consider one more type of drug. This drug D. What this drug is doing? It is doing like this. There is no effect on systolic pressure. There is no effect on systolic pressure. But what this drug D is doing means, it is decreasing the total peripheral resistance. It is decreasing the total peripheral resistance. It decreases the total peripheral resistance. By decreasing the total peripheral resistance, diastolic volume will get decreased. Here the diastolic volume will increase, so diastolic pressure increases. Here the diastolic pressure decreases. Now there are certain drugs. Let us consider next type of drug. Drug type E type of drug. So what does this E type of drug will do means, it will increase the systolic pressure and will decreases the diastolic pressure. There are one more type of drug which increases the systolic pressure and will decreases the diastolic pressure. This is E type of drug. There are next type of drugs. It increases the systolic pressure and it also increases the diastolic pressure. So these are some different types of drugs which are helpful in treating the hypertension. One class of drugs will increase the systolic pressure and next will decrease the systolic pressure. One will increase the diastolic pressure, one will decrease the diastolic pressure, and will increase that systolic and one decrease the diastolic pressure. And if there are some drugs which increases both the systolic and diastolic pressure, and there are some drugs which will decreases the systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. So this is some information about the drugs which are given. Now let us discuss some factors influencing the cardiac output and total peripheral resistance. Let us discuss the factors which are affecting the cardiac output. There are many factors which affecting the cardiac output. The first cardiac output, first is blood volume. The first factor is blood volume. Blood volume is the first factor which affect the cardiac output. How it will affect the cardiac output means, let us consider these are the lungs. Blood volume. What is the how the blood volume will get affected means, whenever there is increase in blood volume, the venous return will get increased. So the venous return towards the right ventricle, right atrium will get increased. From right atrium, from right ventricle will get increased. From right ventricle, the amount of the blood will reaches to the lungs will get increased. So from the lungs again the blood entering into the left ventricle will get increased. So the systemic pressure will get increased. So this is the first condition, that is increasing the cardiac output, that is blood volume. So what are the factors which influences the blood volume means, the first one is sodium concentration. Sodium concentration inside the blood. If there is increase in sodium concentration, there is more accumulation of water. If there is more accumulation of water retention, the blood percentage will get increased. That is the first condition, that is sodium concentration. Next one is mineralocorticoids. Mineralocorticoids, that is like adrenaline. Because of increase of adrenaline, sodium concentration will get increased. If there is increase in sodium concentration, as a result the water concentration will get increased. If there is increase in water concentration, the blood percentage will get increased. The venous return will get increased. Then ultimately the systemic pressure will get increased. This is the second condition. And next one is atrial natriuretic peptide. If there is abnormality within the atrial natriuretic peptide hormone, it increases the blood volume. If there is increase in the blood volume, it results in increase in the venous return, increase in the cardiac output, and increase in the systemic hypertension. So these are some factors which influence the blood volume. And next one is cardiac factors. Next factors are cardiac factors. Next factors which affect the cardiac output is cardiac factors. What are the cardiac factors which comes under this? Are first one is heart rate. If there is excessive amount of excessive heart rate, the amount of the blood moving out from this left ventricle will get increased. As a result, the systemic pressure will get increased. There is increase in systemic pressure, it results in hypertension. That is first heart rate. Second one is increase in contractility. There is increase in the contractility. If there is increase in the contractility by using positive inotropic drugs, venous return will get increased, and ultimately the blood reaching to the left ventricle will get increased, and ultimately the systolic pressure will get increased. So these are some factors which influence in the cardiac output. That is, first one is blood volume, second one is cardiac factors. In the blood volume, the sodium concentration is more, mineralocorticoids are more, and atrial nitric peptide hormone is more, and the heart rate is more, contractility is more. These all conditions will increase the cardiac output. So these are some factors which are affecting the cardiac output. So let us have some discussion on factors affecting the total peripheral resistance. Total peripheral resistance. Factors which are affecting the total peripheral resistance. So, as we know that within our body there are two types of proteins or any chemicals are released, that are constrictors as well as dilators. Like venoconstrictors and venodilators, arterioconstrictors and arteriodilators, vasoconstrictor and vasodilator. So, what comes under this? If there is more constriction, there will be more total peripheral resistance. So, these constrictors plays an important role in affecting the total peripheral resistance. What comes under these constrictors means, one example, that is angiotensin II. Angiotensin II is the arterioconstrictor which helps in constricting the aorta. As a result, will increases the cardiac output. The systemic pressure within the heart will get increased. The systemic pressure will get increased. It will result in hypertension. So, in order to overcome the effect of this angiotensin II, we should give the angiotensin receptor blockers. Angiotensin receptor blockers should be given, like losartan. Angiotensin receptor blockers should be given. And next one is thromboxane. Thromboxane A2. So what is this thromboxane A2 means? Within the cell, within the smooth cells, there is a protein called proteolipase C. Protein lipase C. When this protein lipase C is activated, it forms the arachidonic acid. This arachidonic acid will differentiate or will form into two products. One is prostaglandins, while other one is leukotrienes. These prostaglandins will again further classify and form prostaglandin PGD2, PGE2, PGH2 and thromboxane A2. Whatever the PGD2, E2 and H2, these all are vasodilators. But this thromboxane A2 which is formed, it is a constrictor. Those all the prostaglandin derivatives are vasodilators, but these derivative of prostaglandin, that is thromboxane, it is exceptional, that is constriction, that helps in constriction. So this is next factor, and next one is endothelium, released from endothelial cells. Endothelium. These are some factors which affect the total peripheral resistance. Now, let us discuss one more important factor which results in hypertension. That is renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. Renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. Let us study this renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system within short time. Let us consider this is the circulation. This is nephron. This is the liver. This is the heart, and here this is the adrenal gland. Let us consider a patient met with an accident. There is a loss of blood. So, if there is loss of the blood, this is the blood coming towards the nephron within the kidney. Now, there is efferent arteriole and forms the glomerulus, and there is efferent arteriole. So, whenever the blood entering into the kidneys will get decreased, because the person is met with an accident, there is loss of blood, the amount of the blood reaching to the kidneys for filtration is decreased. So, these whatever the cells which are coming towards whatever this is the efferent arteriole which is coming towards the nephron will get modified like this. It forms a cuboidal cells. The epithelial cells which are coming towards this glomerular structure will get modified. Now these modified cells is called Pulkyson cells. These Pulkyson cells. Now there is one more type of cells which are present here, which are present on DCT. These special type of cells are macula densa. Macula densa, and in between there is a special connective tissues. So these all Pulkyson cells along with some connective tissues along with some macula densa is called juxtaglomerular apparatus. Juxtaglomerular apparatus. Now these whatever the blood which is entering into the kidneys is get decreased, it releases a special enzyme called renin. These juxtaglomerular apparatus like Pulkyson cells and as well as these macula densa cells will release renin. So this renin is entered into the circulation. Now within the liver there is special protein like angiotensinogen. Now this angiotensinogen will work In presence of this renin will work on angiotensinogen and converts angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1. Now, let us consider these are the lungs. These are the lungs. The endothelial cells of these blood vessels consist of special enzyme. The enzyme is called angiotensin converting enzyme. It is angiotensin converting enzyme. Now, this angiotensin converting enzyme, this angiotensin 1 will work along with this angiotensin converting enzyme and will convert angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2. Now, angiotensin 2 is present in the circulation. So, this angiotensin 2 will show its action on different targeted tissues. It will show its action on receptors present on heart, that is beta receptors, and will stimulate the heart. As a result, cardiac output will get increased, stroke volume will get increased, and end diastolic volume will get increased. As a result, cardiac output is increased means stroke volume will get increased. It will show its action on heart, and it will show its action on adrenal gland. That means on zona glomerulosa there is angiotensin receptors are present. It will work on angiotensin receptors and aldosterone will be formed. Now, whatever the aldosterone which is formed will come towards this DCT and helps in reabsorption of sodium ions. If there is increase in reabsorption of sodium ions, the water concentration will get increased. So, if there is increase in concentration of sodium ions, it increases the water levels. So, because of secretion, reabsorption of more water, the blood quantity inside the person who met with an accident will get increased. So, in this way, renin angiotensin mechanism is helpful. But if there is excessive mechanism than normal mechanism, if this renin angiotensin aldosterone system is taking place more rapidly than normal, then it results in hypertension. That is, cardiac output will get increased, stroke volume will get increased. It results in hypertension. Now, there is relation between the systemic pressure and as well as diastolic pressure. If the systolic within the heart in left ventricle, if the systolic pressure is more, then the cardiac output is more, then the systolic pressure will be more. If the systolic pressure will be more, then the aorta which is taking the blood from this left ventricle will get contracted. Because of contraction, the whatever the pressure within the aorta will get increased. As a result, cardiac output is increased. Then if the cardiac output is decreased, then the aortic walls will get opened. Because of opening of aortic walls, there is total resistance will be developed. Because of resistance developing, then there is decrease in the there is decrease in the pressure. This is about renin angiotensin mechanism. Now let us discuss the causes for primary hypertension as well as secondary hypertension. causes for primary hypertension. As we know that this primary hypertension, there is no well-defined factor for this primary hypertension. So there is genetic factors. There will be the influence of genetic factors, but alone these genetic factors cannot cause this primary hypertension. There is one more factor, that is environmental factor. These genetic factors along with the environmental factors will result in primary hypertension. Results in primary hypertension. So what are these environmental factors? Means first factor means increase in the sympathetic outflow. If there is increase in the sympathetic outflow, then how it affects the primary hypothyroidism means, as we know that there are arterioles. On arterioles, calcium channels are present. Let us consider these are the arteries. These are the capillaries. And these are the veins. So on arterioles and venules, there are calcium channels are present. So because of overstimulation, it will stimulate these calcium channels. Because of stimulation of calcium channels, there is more entry of calcium towards, if there is influx of calcium. If there is influx of calcium, there is contraction, there is repolarization and hyperpolarization. There is more contraction. More contraction means the pressure will get increased. So from these venules, it reaches the blood towards the right atrium. So venous flow will get increased. From venous flow, the blood towards the lungs will get increased. So from the lungs, then again to the lungs. From the lungs, again from the lungs to the left ventricle will get increased. As a result, cardiac output will get increased. It results in hypertension. This is the first factor, that is sympathetic outflow. And second factor is renin-angiotensin exaggeration. Renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. If there is excessive usage of this renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, there will be increase in cardiac output and stroke volume. It results in primary hypertension. Next one is natriuretic peptides, atrial natriuretic peptides. If there is deficiency of atrial natriuretic peptides, it results in primary hypertension. Next one is obesity. Obesity will also result in hypertension. And next one is alcohol and smoking. How this alcohol and smoking will result in primary hypertension means, this should be known by every bright student. Whatever the alcohol and smoke which is taken by the person, it will stimulate the sympathetic outflow. If there is overstimulation of sympathetic outflow, there is more opening of calcium ions. As a result, more contraction, there will be more cardiac output, will be resulting in hypertension. This is next condition. And next one is lack of exercise. There is lack of exercise. And next one is usage of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. If there is excessive use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, it results in primary hypertension. So these are some causes for primary hypertension. Now let us discuss some causes for secondary hypertension. causes for secondary hypertension. So there are first causes are renovascular causes. That means there is defect in renal system and as well as vascular system. So the first cause is renal artery stenosis. If there is renal artery stenosis, it results in two conditions. One is atherosclerosis. The first condition is atherosclerosis, and next one is fibromuscular dysapnea. Fibromuscular dysplasia. Fibromuscular dysplasia. It results in secondary hypertension. This is the first condition. And next one is glomerular nephritis. Glomerular nephritis. This is the second condition which results in secondary hypertension. How it means? There in glomerular nephritis there is more reabsorption of sodium ions. If there is more reabsorption of sodium ions, there is more reabsorption of water molecules. If there is more reabsorption of water, it results in increasing water concentration and will increase the cardiac output. This is glomerular nephritis. And next one is polycystis. Next one is renin producing enzymes, or else renin producing tumors. Because of production of tumor cells. Because of production of tumor cells within the kidney, resulting secondary hypertension. So these are some renovascular causes. Next causes are endocrine causes. Next causes are endocrine causes. First, let us start from hypothalamus. First cause is acromegaly. First cause starts from hypothalamus, that is because of presence of acromegaly, it is in secondary hypertension. From hypothalamus, let us come to the neck, that is thyroid. Thyroid dysfunctions. Either it may be hyperthyroidism or else hypothyroidism. It results in secondary hypertension from thyroid gland. Next, parathyroid gland, that is hyperparathyroidism. That is hyperparathyroidism. From thyroidism, let us go to the pancreas. Within the pancreas, diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus. This is a condition which results in secondary hypertension. From this diabetes mellitus, let us consider one Cushing syndrome. Cushing syndrome. In Cushing syndrome, there is excessive usage of glucocorticoids. So because of excessive use of glucocorticoids, it results in secondary hypertension. And next one is important cause is there are certain enzymes like beta 11 hydroxylase and alpha. One is beta 11 hydroxylase, other one is alpha 17 hydroxylase. Because of deficiency of this beta 11 hydroxylase, alpha 17 hydroxylase, it results in secondary hypertension. And next one is there is exogenous steroids. Because of usage of exogenous steroids, it results in secondary hypertension. This is about endocrine causes. Now next let us discuss about cardiovascular causes. Cardiovascular system causes. First, it includes contraction of aorta, contractions of aorta. That means the left side diameter of this aorta will get decreased, as well as the pressure within the aorta will get increased. It results in secondary hypertension. That is, it is also called atrial stenosis. This is the first condition. And next one is increase in cardiac output. If there is increase in cardiac output, it results in secondary hypertension. And it also increase in total peripheral resistance. If there is increase in total peripheral resistance, if there is increase in cardiac output, it results in systemic pressure increase. If there is increase in total peripheral resistance, it will increase the diastolic pressure. These are causes of cardiovascular system. Next, let us discuss nervous system neurological causes. There are some neurological causes. One like sleep apnea, and surgeries. And next one is intracranial pressure, that is increase in the intracranial pressure. Increase in the intracranial pressure. So these are some causes for the secondary secondary hypertension. As you know that the targeted tissues are 5 targeted tissues. One is central nervous system, next one is eyes, and next one is heart, and next one is circulation, and next one is kidneys. So if there is more hypertension, there will be more problem within these 5 types of organs. And there is one more concept about morphological lesions. In morphological lesions, there are 2 types of lesions are present, like hyaline arteriolosclerosis. First one is hyaline arteriolosclerosis. That is, what is hyaline arteriolosclerosis means? Within the blood vessel, the innermost layer is intima, anexed presence of smooth muscles. So within the hyaline arteriosclerosis, there is hyaline material will get accumulated. Because of hyaline material, it becomes narrow. The condition is called hyaline atherosclerosis. And next condition is hyperplasic arteriolosclerosis. Hyperplasic arteriolosclerosis. In this hyperplasic arteriolosclerosis, the blood vessels will get converted into malignant form. So as a result, there is increase in pressure of more than 130 millimeters of mercury. There will be increase of pressure of more than 130 millimeters of mercury. So this is about the normal hypertension. We have discussed about the hypertension, cardiac output, and total peripheral resistance, and types of hypertensions, and causes of primary hypertension, and causes of secondary hypertension, and morphological lesions, and the targeted tissues. So in our next video, let us discuss about the antihypertensive drugs.